Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the head noise, kind of part two. I want to say head noise, but anyway, the second head noise episode of this week. The reason I decided to do two is because I wanted one with the voicemails. So go listen to that one yesterday if you haven't yet already. Great questions. And then one of people writing in because I don't want to completely ignore the ones that are written in as well because they're just as good. Okay. Now, I don't want to, life is great. Everything's amazing. By the time this episode comes out, I would have gone to Noosa just for 2 hot days to do a little speech at my high school. Is that not the cutest thing? For those of you playing at home, I grew up in Noosa. Well, from like 10 to 18, I lived in Noosa. And I'm doing a speech at my high school. Well, I'm recording this on Tuesday and on Thursday I'm doing a speech. And I'm so excited. It'll be so cute. Anyway, so I'm doing that with my high school bestie. It'll be fun times. And yeah, I can't wait to actually like report back and see how it went. But yeah, so cute. Okay, now I just want to dive straight in because I want to maximize this episode with some advice and content. So let's go straight in. There's some really great questions and they're all different topics, different themes. So I think it's a really well-rounded ep. Okay, first one. Here we go. Hello, Alexis. UK Bean here. Love my UK Beans so much. Your podcasts are so relatable, and I've taken so much of your advice into my everyday life. Thank you isn't enough for the impact you've had. Thank you. My question today relates to routine versus ritual. For the past 6 months at least, I have been getting up at the same time early in the morning and following a short routine of a walk and then a quick clean of the house. I did this on the back of your podcast that suggested showing up for yourself in this way can be a type of self-love. I struggle to understand what people mean when they say you need to love yourself, but this kind of action felt tangible to me. I have found the routine to be useful, but recently came across the concept of slow living and doing the same things every morning, but taking everything in your own stride. I didn't look into this any further and thought I would direct my question to you. The routine has provided structure and has kept me on track whilst being off work for a few weeks with burnout. My mental well-being has had ups and downs during this time, and changing anything at this point feels a little risky. However, sometimes when I wake up early now, the tendency to not stick to it has increased, questioning what I need to be getting up for so urgently. I wonder if a little less regimented lifestyle may provide similar benefits or would be more detrimental and lean into poorer mental health instead. I will be going back to work soon, but I will have 3 to 4 days off a week where I will have the choice in how I start each day. I know it's not a particularly interesting topic, but I wonder if you have any light to shed on the concepts. That's a great topic. I think it's very interesting. And I think a lot of people will want to know because we talk about, and I talk about the importance of like routine, morning routine, all of that, and also the importance of this slow living. And what is the point? Let's talk about the benefits of each. What is this slow living and this slowing down movement all about? I love absolutely everything about it when you look at it from like a benefits perspective. It's getting you to be more present in the moment. Ultimately, that is the point. That is the number one main reason for this slow movement is everything so often is done with while we're doing something, we're thinking about the next thing. While we're doing this thing, now we think. So our mind is rarely ever in what we are doing in that moment. And happiness can only be had in that moment. So by slowing down, quote unquote, and most of but slowing down, you're not physically doing things, you're not walking slower, you're not whatever. You're basically just doing one thing at a time and you're really putting your energy and effort into. You're doing like you're taking longer to like you're going to cook a nice meal and then you're going to sit down and you're going to enjoy it instead of rushing, microwaving something, shoving it down your mouth while you're doing something else. So you're slowing it right down, but really the point of all of that is to become more present. Do I think that slowing things down and this slow movement thing is good? Yes, it's great. I think everything about it is great. I love it, okay? Love a slow morning, love everything about it. What are the benefits of routine? The benefits of routine are to outsource certain things that you want to get done every single day to your subconscious mind. It cuts out the decision-making process of so many things. It helps you become more disciplined. It actually gives you more freedom because sometimes when we don't have structure to our day, we think it's freedom. Go listen to my Discipline is Freedom episode. We think it's freedom, but actually what ends up happening is we're too scattered in what we do and we actually don't get much done. And then because we're not getting much done, we're not satisfied. And when we feel a lack of satisfaction, that's when we reach to instant feel good things. For example, the main one, which is our phone. We're on our phones, we're scrolling, and then we have less motivation to do things, and then we don't get those things done. So while we think, what we've tricked ourselves into thinking that we've had like a relaxing day, often you've had a day where you've wasted time that you're never going to get back. And I'm not talking about you got to maximize your time to make $1, make every dollar. No, I'm talking about time where you could have been happy, time where you could have felt good and, in a good mood or relaxed. So when I talk about maximizing time, it's not about necessarily hustling. It's about, was I really present in that moment? Did I enjoy myself in that time? Because when we get home and lie on the couch and doom scroll, you cannot say that you can look back in 10 years' time and be like, those were the good times, the hours and hours and hours that I spent just scrolling on my phone. It's not that. It's the slow meal that I made. It's a slow walk. So to your question, why am I getting up so early with so much urgency? You do not have to be. You can still have a routine that ties into slow living. You can also have a routine on a work morning that looks different to a routine on a non-work morning. Okay? So when I talk about routines, it doesn't have to be this every single day has to be the same if it doesn't work for you. Okay, it's more so if you look at my weekends, they're very different to my weekdays. And even on my weekdays, there are times where I change things up. Many times where I change things up because of I'm way too sore to train. I thought I'd be good to train. It's not going to happen because I also have to listen to my body. You have to allow for a lot of leeway in these routines because you don't want to ignore your needs either. But the benefit of a routine is it's there to serve you. So you get things done, kind of habit stacking and all of that. So you feel like I've smashed this out without having to think about it. Now I can invest my creative energy and my decision-making quota into other things that are more important to me, okay? So again, back to your question, if there is no reason to get up early and you do not enjoy getting up early, don't get up early. There is not necessarily a benefit in getting up early as far as where your body clock is. And if you're someone that just likes to get up a bit later, that is perfectly fine. I know I bang on about getting up earlier because A, it's something that a lot of people ask me, how do I get up early? Because I like maximizing my mornings. B, because I personally love getting up around the time that the sun comes up because I enjoy it. But if there's absolutely no need and no desire, do not feel pressured to do that. You've got to work with a routine that works for you. The only thing to pay attention to when people talk about slow mornings is that sometimes this slow morning can be misinterpreted as do whatever you want and do whatever feels good. There's a fine line between listening to what your body needs versus doing what just feels satisfying in the moment, because it's kind of like a trick that your mind plays on you. Okay, because what feels satisfying in the moment can be leading into these addictive habits and addictive behaviors that pulls you into a loop, like opening your phone the first thing in the morning. That might be like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to stay in bed and start slow and just scroll through Instagram? That's not helpful and it's not good for your brain, okay? You deplete yourself from, you're spiking your dopamine, then you deplete it. You're not maximizing this beautiful time in the morning when you've just woken up. And I'm not saying because you've got to get up earlier, but even if you woke up at 8 o'clock or 9 or whatever the hell you want to wake up, even if you want a slow morning, you've got to make sure you're doing the right things for you to feel good for your mental health. You said you took time because of burnout. So you've got to make sure that you're taking care of your brain and your mind if you're feeling burnt out. So a slow morning for you, make sure that it's healthy. I want to wake up and maybe I want to spend 30 minutes at home lounging around. I wouldn't necessarily in my bed because I look at bed for sleep. But maybe grab a book, make yourself a tea, sit on the couch and read for 30 minutes. Sit on the deck or the balcony or whatever, the front doorstep, and read for 30 minutes. That's not with your tea. Put it away. I don't like exercising in the morning. I don't exercise in the morning. That's fine. But it's like, how do I still incorporate a slow morning, which is great, nothing wrong with that, and how do I then turn this into something that's still going to be quite healthy for me? So I'm not engaging in addictive behaviors. I'm not tricking myself saying, oh, but it's me time, I'm doing whatever, but then doing something that's going to be detrimental. So don't lean into these addictive behaviors. Still make sure that you're doing things that are going to benefit your future self. Don't think instant gratification means I'm doing myself a favor and I'm doing a slow routine, because it's not, okay? So make sure that even when you're incorporating slow things, you're going to ask yourself, is this beneficial for the future me, and is it helping my brain? Now, I'm not saying you've got to analyze everything and, now I can't do anything, but I'm talking about when we're talking about something that has to be done daily, and we're talking about someone who's taken time off because they've had burnout, you do have to be kind of looking at it through the lens of overall, is this good for my mental health? Okay. I've got no problem with being on your phone. I fucking go on my phone very often, but I'm quite strict of when it happens, and it does not happen in the morning when I'm doing things. Even on my Saturdays. My Saturdays are my slowest days. I get up later. I take the dog for a walk. I come back. Then I go into the markets. I meet my girlfriends. We have coffee. We walk around. We buy pastries. Every Saturday we do that. And I do not scroll on my phone until way later in the morning when I get back home after all of that. Okay? So even in the slowest of mornings, I'm still making sure that I'm doing things where I feel really fulfilled. I feel really happy. I can look back at every single Saturday morning I've had for the last year and be like, those are the good times, okay? Because I'm present. Am I doing anything for my career or my job? No, doesn't matter. But am I really enjoying it? Am I really present? Am I really in the moment? Am I really slowing down? Am I listening to my body? Yes, 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 and yes, okay? So that's kind of my definition between the need for routine and slow. You can combine the two, all right? And I'm glad you asked that question because it's a good opportunity for me to clarify that as well. So thank you. Next question. Hi, girl. I love your podcast. I listen to it all the time, and I recently bought your Neuroscience of Self-Love book. Thank you. You are such an inspiration. My question is, how do I stop my negative self-talk? I want to improve my life and my mindset, but I always seem to bounce back to my old ways and am never consistent. I've tried many things such as kinder self-talk and meditation, along with other things, but I always fall back into this rut. When I try these things, I never fully believe them, but I know I want to. I'm also a smoker, and I have tried to quit many times, but the same thing happens where I think, what's the point? I'm never going to succeed. I'll only fall off the wagon again and never 100% believe myself when I say this is what I really want. In the end, I always give up and take the easier way out, returning to these old habits. It's not just the smoking though. It could be anything from trying to make friends to saying affirmations. I just can't stop myself from thinking these negative thoughts that I can't do this, or I don't believe it's true, or they probably don't like me. How do I stop this negative mindset and get myself to believe the changes I make are real? Okay, there's two things that you can do. The first one has to do with how you're changing your thoughts. And the second one is going to do with behaviors that you can do. Let's talk about the first one. So we're talking about how you can change your thoughts. You're saying, I don't believe these statements. That's my issue with a lot of affirmations, okay? I think affirmations are fucking phenomenal. They're very good when done properly, and there's a lot of evidence to back how good they are for the brain as well, and for your self-esteem and your blah, 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 all of that shit, okay? However, the reason affirmations are so good for you is because it's based on what your belief is around the statement that you are saying. That's why people who always talk about how they're sick are getting more and more and more sick, okay? Or the people that always talk about how easy it is to do this and how easy things just keep coming their way, okay? You kind of create your own reality based on your language. But the big asterisk on that is it has to be underlined with belief, okay? So for example, if you're making a statement that you don't really believe, it's not going to be that beneficial or detrimental. For example, like I heard recently, someone saying, you've got to be so careful with your language because when you say things, that's going to be your reality. And I'm like, that's not really the truth unless you believe it. Like when people say, oh my God, I'm dead. You're not actually dead, and you're not going to die because you don't believe that you're dead when you're reacting to something funny saying I'm dead. Okay, so you're safe. Don't freak out about those kinds of statements. It's all around the beliefs behind it. Right now, when you're saying an affirmation and you don't believe it, it's because your negative self-talk is too loud and this affirmation feels way too far from your current reality. Okay? That is why you don't stick to it, because you're like, this does not feel real. It doesn't feel right, and it's a waste of my time. And me saying it doesn't, if anything, it probably makes you feel worse, okay? Because it highlights the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So instead, when you do your affirmations, you've got to find the most neutral feeling thought. Right now, your aim isn't to feel spectacular. Your aim is to feel neutral. We want to go from negative to neutral. It's one step at a time. So firstly, and this is not going to be fun, but it's important, identify the main thoughts. And I feel like one of your main negative thoughts is that you never stick something through. You can never get something done. You can never stick to something. And you always say you fall off the bandwagon, you quit. You're always a quitter. You're a quitter, okay? That's your negative self-talk. I'm a quitter, I'm a quitter, I'm a quitter. And then it's this kind of confirmation bias because you can think of all these examples where you've quit something, okay? And you bring them up and you bring them up. So instead, you can start to reword that language and say, I have quit on many things. However, there are things that I can stick to. And start to list things that you have stuck to. And I don't care how mundane they are, but I want you to prove to yourself that there are behaviors that you can take on that you can stick to. For example, brushing your teeth. Okay. You have stuck to that, right? What's another thing that you have stuck to? Going to work, going to school, studying, whatever it is, start thinking of, well, I've kind of stuck to that. I have stuck to that. I have stuck to that. What is something that you regularly clean? What is something that you do? And there's all these behaviors. And I know they sound mundane, but it doesn't matter because the brain is not here to discriminate. Okay? The brain is here to do the best with what you give it, as far as what you tell it. And then when you give your brain to hold on to something, it will run with it. Right now, it's running in the direction you don't want to run with because you're giving it all these negative, like I don't stick to things. So it's like, all right, cool, you don't stick to things. I'll make sure that that's what happens for you. I'm doing you a favor, doing what you want me to do. Instead, you want to start to change it, and then you want to get to the most neutral feeling thought. So, for example, if you say I'm a failure, don't be so universal with your language. Don't be so catastrophic. You want to say, I have failed at a handful of things, yes, but I have passed certain things as well, or I've completed certain things as well. I am capable of doing something. Like you could say, I am physically capable of quitting smoking. You are physically capable, right? You know it because the physicality of smoking is picking up a cigarette, putting it in your mouth. You know that physically it's possible. It's in the realm of possibility. You know it's possible. Have you proven it to you? It doesn't matter. Let's find a neutral thought. It is possible for me to quit smoking. So that's going to be your next thought. It's possible. Have I shown how I can do it? No, but that's irrelevant. Then the next thought above that is, if I had the right parameters in place, it would be likely that I could quit smoking. See, that's the next step up. If I felt supported, if I felt that I had other things that I could be, focusing on and other exciting things, and I could replace smoking with something else, then it would be probably more likely. And then there's the next rung up, the next rung up, the next rung up. All of these have to be believable before you take the next step, okay? In the interim, now let's look at behaviors that you can be doing so you don't have such negative self-talk. I want you to start, because smoking is a big one. We're not only talking about starting a behavior or quitting a behavior, but we're talking about a chemical addiction. So I think to start, when you're someone that's always, you're telling yourself you can never see something through, to start with a chemical addiction as one of the first things to prove that you can do something, you're really setting the bar high, because a chemical addiction is quite difficult. And when we're talking about willpower, you almost want to be like, all right, I need to be working on my willpower in order to then tackle this chemical addiction that I've got, right? So let's start with something quite basic. I want you to start doing something every single day, right? And I want it to be small and basic, but you do it every single day. Or if you don't want to do it every single day, you don't want to set that hard thing, I want you to do this rule of no 2 days off in a row. So you get a chart, you put it up. I don't care if it's ugly, put it up in your kitchen or in your bedroom right next to your bed. And you're going to do that thing as often as it takes it. There's no 2 days off in a row, okay? And you do a cross on the days that you do it, and then you leave blank the days that you haven't done it. And as long as there's no 2 days off touching each other, you're doing well, all right? So that's what I use as like second to doing something every day. So it's still, there's quite a significant level of consistency. You could have 3 days in a row, 1 day off, that's fine. 3 days off, as long as it's not 2 days off, you're killing it. Now I want you to pick what that thing is going to be, okay? This is just an exercise in willpower. Now I have a brain fact on this, but there is a region in the brain, the name of it's escaping me right now. I'm really annoyed because I don't want to think of what the name is. But there's a region in the brain that literally grows when you administer willpower, grit, tenacity, all of that. And it literally shrinks when you don't, okay? And this is not one of those things. So elite athletes who are really disciplined have a much larger area in that brain. And people that never see something through or are really like slack with either their training or their eating or whatever, it's a lot smaller. And the beauty of this is that they're not born with regions. It's not like, oh, the size of it is causal to how much willpower you have. It's the other way around. The more you do hard things, the bigger that area grows and the easier it becomes to administer willpower. So those people that are doing those hard things that you're like, I could never, it's not as hard for them anymore. That's why they're still doing it. If it was as hard as it was from day one, they probably maybe wouldn't be doing it anymore. So you've got to look at people that have crazy willpower and think, yes, it still requires willpower, but because that part of the brain has grown, it's now so much easier for them to just see it through and stick to it and just do it and have the discipline, okay? So what our aim here is to start to train your brain to see something through. So let's start small. So we're going to start with something really basic. It could be a language app. It could be, I'm going to get my mat out, roll it out, and just stretch for 10 minutes as often as possible, as many days in a row as possible. And if I have one day off, that's fine. And we're talking basic things. And ideally, I want you to do something. That's why I've chosen stretching or like a language app or whatever, or reading. 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of reading. Okay. The reason I'm choosing these really basic things is because, for starters, I want you to do something that's not attached to emotion. You've already tried quitting smoking several times. You've already tried all the, and your emotions are quite heightened around that. They're very negative. It's very loud, this head noise that you've got. So I want you to start with something that's neutral emotion. Okay. These activities that I just mentioned, really short amount of time that you dedicate towards it, 5 to 10 minutes, and that you don't have to do every single day, but ideally as often as possible, or just no 2 days off in a row. Okay. Then you're going to start to do it. And that's when you start to realize that you can see something through. Once you prove something to yourself, it gets easier to prove the next thing that's a little bit harder, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. What you need to do is you need to create a new reputation. The reputation you have created for yourself doesn't serve you, but it is screaming at you. I have a reputation where I don't stick to anything, and I keep saying that. Your negative self-talk isn't trying to lie to you. It's just saying what you believe your reality to be. I don't stick to anything, and it's true. Here's all these examples where I don't. So what we're trying to do is we're going to change our reputation, and the only way you can change your reputation is through, obviously, consistency, showing up repeatedly, and looking back at your behaviors and your actions and noticing change. So that's why, it doesn't matter how small it is. It does not matter how small it is, because that is still enough to change your perception of your own reputation. Okay? Hopefully that has given you a little bit more oomph to start. And if it means delaying the quitting smoking for a bit, that's okay. Maybe in the meantime, you reduce your smoking by 1 cigarette a day, that kind of thing. But I feel like at the moment for you, every time you start and then quit and start, it gets harder and harder and harder to quit, because you quit for a shorter and shorter and shorter amount of time because of this really loud head noise that you've got. So focus on something else with less emotion. Start to grow your willpower. Start to change your what's the word that I was just using? Reputation with yourself. And then you're going to see some significant changes in what you believe about yourself. Thank you so much for writing that in. All right, second last one. I am stuck between two worlds. Help. First of all, I wanted to start by saying I share your pet hate for cunty small dog owners. I have a Chocky Lab, sweet boy. I have a Chocky Lab who's a big, I'm guessing it's a boy, who is a big baby, and we constantly get shit from small dog owners at dog parks, and it grinds my gears. Oh my God. I know. And mind you, there's so many great small dog owners out there. So we're speaking to the mean ones that yell at us for having a big dog, for just having a big dog that exists. Like, I don't mind if you yell at me if my dog was actually causing a scene. Like, I will gladly be yelled at. But when he's just like trotting along and sniffing a flower, don't you dare judge me when your dog's jumping on me. Anyway, I could just go on another tangent, and I won't. So we're going to dive in. I started listening to your pod earlier this year, and it is part of my daily routine. Thank you. I honestly find it so inspiring and relatable. Your confidence and ability to have a voice for others inspires me, and I'm hoping you can help with my dilemma. I'm stuck between two worlds. I grew up in England, and I left at age 21 to go backpacking in Australia. Fast forward 13 years. I'm now 34 and have been living in Australia for 13 years. That's amazing. From a backpacking trip, that's epic. I love Brisbane and now consider it my home. There is just one giant problem. My family aren't here. None of them. And it's a hole in my life. I miss my family so much. My dad is aging, and I realize I'm missing out on crucial years with him. Mum's not on the scene. The problem is, when I go back to England now, I feel I no longer belong. I've outgrown it, and I've seen all the wonders that Australia has to offer, and the list is endless. I would only be moving back for my family's sake, which is a huge reason, obviously, but I'm worried I would resent them in the long run, giving up the amazing life I have here. But I also can't shake the feeling I will have regrets staying here and missing out on what's most important in life. Family, especially if/when I have children. For context, I recently Subtext, I recently went through a breakup with my toxic fiance of 7 years. We sold our house and we co-parent our beautiful dog. Not ideal. Oh, it's so hard, isn't it? I would have to, oh my God, I don't know how. Imagine Habib. Oh, I'd definitely be co-parenting him. I'm at a crossroads and my family are aware of that. If I was ever to move back, now would be the time. They have always encouraged me to live my life and follow my dreams. However, recently they have expressed how much they miss me and wish I was close by. It breaks my heart, and I know they think me a little selfish for never coming back and living my life here. I try to go back most years for a holiday, and every year I see how much they are aging. It's like a punch in the gut every time, and so hard to leave when it gets to my final days here. We are so, so close, and I love them more than anything. But I also love Australia and the life I have built here. I have a good government job, my beautiful dog, and built some great friendships. I don't know what to do and it's consuming me. I've put my life on hold in terms of dating, re-entering the property market, or making any future plans because I'm in this limbo. I'm not getting any younger and I need to make a decision, but the sheer magnitude of this decision has me paralyzed. Please help. That is such an intense decision, and I totally, totally see why it's like tearing you apart. I can only imagine how intense and difficult that would be, honestly. But I want to ask you a question. Were any of these intense beliefs happening when you were in a relationship? Because sometimes there's so much pressure that's put on us when we're single, or perceived pressure, I should say, that we think there's added pressure, when we're single, because there's more like flexibility with your life from the outside point of view versus when you're in a relationship. Like if you're in a relationship with an Australian, for example, so you're more likely to probably stay here because A, your life is here, and B, their life is also here. Would that change how, like, were these crazy thoughts cropping up in the last 7 years in this relationship? And I feel like maybe not. You feel you're at a crossroads just because you're now single and not in that relationship. So I also don't want you to feel that the relationship is what made it okay for you to stay. It's okay to want to stay somewhere because it is where you feel the most fulfilled and happy in your life. And I can also say that you can have a fulfilled life and still it not all be perfect or the picture not be complete. You can be extremely fulfilled and happy and miss something and mourn something and really desire something that you can't have, or feel like, there's one world where you have this one great thing, but everything else isn't great, or another world where everything's great and this one thing is missing. So that's one thing that I want to ask you. Like, do you feel this added pressure because now you're not in that relationship? Because I don't want you to be hard on yourself thinking that now that you're single, you have to cater to people, whereas in the past you didn't. Now, the other thing that you got to ask yourself is realistically, and don't be biased as in like, oh no, I wouldn't be. How happy do you think you could really be living back in the UK? Like, what could your life look like? And try and get creative. Don't be negative with it. Try and get as creative as possible. What are the key things that make you happy about being in Australia? And why is it that is unique to being here? And I'm not saying to realize that there's many things that are going to be unique to your experience being here that you will not be able to recreate there. But I want you to identify what those things are. And then say, is it possible that I could have a similar life to this? Or do I know that for sure I would just be much happier, and the life that I've built for myself and everything I've done to create this life, I've worked my ass off and now I'm here and I know for sure that this is where I'm supposed to be and I'm happy. Okay? Because at the same time, nobody would benefit from you uprooting your entire life and moving back just for proximity, but then not being happy, feeling lost, feeling miserable, but then you're closer, because then the quality of the relationship you're going to have if you're not happy anymore is not going to be great. Okay? And when you miss someone, it's so hard because it's a symbol of how much you love them. But at the same time, when someone loves you so much, of course they miss you, and there's nothing wrong with them saying that they miss you, and they might feel this way about maybe you're being a little bit selfish, and it all comes down to them loving and missing you. But deep down, with someone you love, the thing that you desire the most is for them to be happy. That is the ultimate desire that you have. And I've heard my grandparents' migration stories many, many times, and it was so difficult even harder back then because you had to write to them and it took two weeks for a letter to get there and back. But my grandparents told me this story so many times on both ends. My 4 grandparents, they all migrated to Australia. They left family behind, but it was the right thing for them to do. They, could they have stayed? Maybe. And that would they have returned? And they both, on both ends, they were going to do it temporarily just for 2 years. But then when they came here, they had this new life and they realized, no, this is our new life. We've built a life here. We're building a life here. This is going to be our home and we're not going to come home. And it was very difficult. And I understand I'm talking about decades ago. But what I'm saying is that they all decided this is where my roots are. I know it. I know it. I feel it. This is my new trajectory, and it doesn't take away from the fact that I miss my family terribly, and that will never go away. And the reason it's never going to go away is because my love for them will never go away. That won't change. I have to learn how to live with missing them, but also understand that the best I can be as a family member is to be happy. They want me to be happy. Could I have this happiness at home? Is there a version of my life that I could be excited about living at home? And is this why I'm also a bit torn because I think I could have it? Or do I know deep down in my heart that this is where I'm supposed to be and the only reason why I'd go home is for the family? Because if this is where you're supposed to be, then this is where you're supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? And the missing is part of that. And there's so many people, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people around the world that have left a country and migrated and struggle with that regularly because they love their family. But you're not alone in feeling the way you're feeling, because the amount of people, migrants, that experience what you experience on a daily basis is just, I feel like I don't want you to feel guilty and feel like you're doing the wrong thing, basically, because you're not doing the wrong thing. It is natural based on the crazy amount of people that have done it and continue to do it to feel more at home somewhere else and for you to want to lay your roots down there. Okay. So what I don't want you feeling is that if you make the decision to stay, I don't want you to feel like you've done the wrong thing, because you haven't. Okay. Just turn to all the millions of examples around you to be like, this is just in our nature to feel compelled to do this and to find my home somewhere else that wasn't where I was born. Okay. I don't know if that answered your question. I guess I can't answer that question for you. It's just not possible. But I just hopefully that helped you look at it in many different ways. And I want you to realize that living here, part of that will be always missing your family. That is a part of it. Okay. But I think if they understand that the happiest you'll ever be is being here, that also would give them some comfort as well. Okay. All right. This is the last one for today. It's called, this one has a title, When is Enough Enough? Good times. Alexis, please help. I've been struggling with severe ruminating thoughts. For context, I have 2 inner circle best friends that I have known for 16 years. 2 years ago, my friendship with these girls started to dwindle and drift apart, and they started to act distant with me, invite me less, not be very supportive, judgmental, and cared less and less for me with no real reason why. After serious thought, I decided to subtly cut them off because they were mentally draining me. It was hard to cut them out of my life, get my own closure, and unfollow them on social media, but it helped me grow exponentially. Cut to the present. And I, for some reason, miss these 2 girls strongly. I constantly catch myself reminiscing for all the good times we had and cry that I'm not in contact with these childhood friends anymore. I recently wished one of them a happy birthday after not having texted her in 2 years, and she wished me well. And I then asked her to let me know if she ever wanted to catch up sometime, but she never did. I felt rejected at that point, but still miss these girls being in my life. Our friendship before was overall so healthy, fun, and never toxic, and I miss that part. I really feel like I fucked up 2 years ago by not asking them to have serious conversations about how I felt instead of just walking away. Should I forget about them and move on, or see if our friendship can ever rekindle? I feel like a silly wet dog pining for these girls who probably don't even miss me. That's a great question. But there's a couple of things I'm going to say. The first thing I'm going to say is maybe, and this is just a minor detail, so I'll address it quickly. Maybe the reason that she didn't feel like she would reach up and catch up with you is because you ended up cutting them out and blocking them. So you probably felt that it would be awkward or uncomfortable, and that like too much time has passed and it's like kind of that chapter in her life has ended, and she probably just thought, It's a bit weird now. It might not necessarily be a rejection or a like, I don't like it, whatever, but it might just be that. So I would like, don't try not to look into that too deeply. But another thing, and this is something that I've experienced personally with romantic relationships. So one thing that we're really good at doing is when something ends, and this could happen immediately after, or it could happen a few years after, and it's happened in both scenarios for me in my past. When something ends and then we begin to miss it, we miss the good times, the earlier stages of it, okay? So you miss like the childhood friendship that you had with them. You miss all these like beautiful moments and beautiful memories. But none of those things, even if you hadn't cut them out, even if you had stayed in the friendship, those times are still dead and gone, dead, done, finished, dead in the water, okay? The beautiful times, the childhood memories, the love, the support, no, gone. If you look at, they acted distant. They didn't invite you to things. They weren't supportive. They were judgmental, and they cared less and less for you. No, thank you very much. That of how it was at the end is what you have to remind yourself of. Not in a negative way, but you got to be like, I need to put shit into perspective, because what I left was this behavior. I didn't leave this beautiful childhood friendship where we were so amazing and so kind. I didn't walk away from that. I walked away from what it evolved to, which was garbage. Okay? Now, what you can do, so did you walk away? Was it right for you to walk away? Yes, because you weren't respected, you weren't cared for, the friendship obviously wasn't serving them, and it definitely wasn't serving you. But I can also understand that you could feel like, but there's so much longevity there. I wish I hadn't fully cut them out. I wish they were still somewhat in my life for old time's sake. And I do understand. I understand that. So one thing that you could do, and this is going to help you regardless of the response, is you could reach out to them and say, I know a lot of time has passed and I feel like the way things ended maybe weren't communicated across properly with our friendship. And I don't expect our friendship to be exactly as it used to be, but I would actually love to have you girls in my life, even if it's different to how it used to be. We have so many great memories together, and it would be a shame to not continue this life journey, even if it's not at the closeness level. Would you guys want to, catch up and meet up and chat? That way you open the door. If they turn around and say, no, not interested, don't want it, don't whatever, then that's also a good thing, because it helps you with an answer. Because at the moment you're struggling, yes, no. But what I don't want you to think is I've done the wrong thing by cutting them out. You have to remind yourself of what you cut out of your life. You cut out an unhealthy friendship where I'm going by what you're saying. Every story has two sides, I get that, but I'm going on your side of the story, where for no reason they have cut you out and treated you like shit, okay? They were judgy, they were this, they were that. It's not a representation of what the friendship used to be. So you're cutting out that, okay? You didn't wake up one day and think, you know what? This beautiful childhood friendship where they treat me so well, bye, cut them out. That's not what you've done. So be a little bit kinder to yourself, put shit into perspective, realize that you're missing things that didn't even exist anymore when you were in the friendship. Okay, you've got to remind yourself of that. The stuff I miss, even if I had stayed in the friendship, would not exist today anyway. So whether I was in it or whether I'm out of it, I would still miss it because it was gone. Didn't happen anymore. That's what I would do. I would just, if I still was like, no, I can't get over it, I miss it too much, I can't, then I would send that message. And either way, if they respond positively, it's like, great, we've come full circle, we've learned our lessons, we can still have some semblance of a friendship, that's nice. If they don't, then they're like, well, nothing much has changed in that time since I cut them out. They've just confirmed that it's just not meant to be. So I'm actually happy that I have an answer. However, when you send a message like that, you always have to be prepared for all three outcomes: positive outcome, negative outcome, or no response whatsoever, which you could interpret however you want to interpret. So there's always going to be three outcomes: good, bad, or nothing, no response. If you are prepared for either of those outcomes, send the message. If you are not prepared, then don't contact them. Okay? That would be my advice to you. But don't beat yourself up about it, because you got to be strict with yourself. We are so fucking good at looking back, and we do this with breakups as well. We're like, oh my God, but that time that they did this for me, and we're reminiscing on like the really good first year, and we don't think about the last 3 shit years, okay? So don't torture yourself. You need to get really get strict with yourself, saying, I'm not going to bullshit myself here and cry myself into a fucking hole this afternoon when the sun is shining. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay everything out and be really real and hard up with myself and be like, what is fact? What is fiction? Let's get real, okay? Hopefully that helped. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and thank you for sending in your questions. I love the questions, whether it's a voice message, whether it is written. I love them all. If you want to send, so the voice message, you go on the website, dyfmpod.com, and you'll find it there on the website in the little menu. You can send a voice message. If you want to send me your story via email, you can do it through the question box in the email, or you can email directly at info@dyfmpod.com. That is all for today. As always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Danke!